It's as weird as the invention gets. It's one individual at one side of the world trying to communicate to another individual, another side of the world about a particular thing that's going on in the world. And these separations, distances might be as subtle as being 2 or 3 miles away, or it could be as drastic as being miles and miles away. And what's particularly interesting when I do start to do these things is what exactly is my position? What am I trying to communicate to whoever might be on the other side? In this case of the camera, because that's all the equipment that's available so far. Well, physically available equipment. Well, there's the tripod there with the camera, and then this is the board trying to translate or trying to reposition ideas onto a medium that's familiar for transmission. And this medium is familiar for transmission as far as one could read and one could understand what exactly is it that's happening, or what's the goal in stating all of these things, what's the end point. And couldn't exactly give you a consecutive sequencing of it, but it's happening in different times, it's happening in different moments, and in each moment that it occurs, what it tries to occur is a better identification of itself, a better review of what exactly it's trying to be communicated here. And in this case is simply that it's main quest for actualization, how he finds it, and the obstacles that he has to pass through to get to it. And that's always, in one way or another, the theme that goes on, even in the moment of straightforward linear progress, where one is repeating a game, playing checkers again, finding out how to be better communicator. In any of these situations, it is exactly what's going on. Man is trying to attain actualization, and a great impediment to this, in the most cliche form, is himself in unity, in union. It's one of the most interesting phenomena that just a tiny minority of the world takes control of a very large population of it, and it's understandable given the situation we find ourselves in. Your man is surrounded, and he's obviously trustworthy in this way. He does not immediately suspect his culture. He doesn't immediately suspect his culture. He gives his culture the benefit of the doubt, but ultimately where one finds himself in is at least a transformer or a maintainer, in that if the state of the culture is not correct, that's a petri dish as the organic organism we are. If the quality is not correct, man is a transformer. If it is correct and he detects it, he's a maintainer. But in man's case, presently, he has to transform his culture. He's secularly ridden. His mind is not set on things that it could otherwise be, that will be drastically, infinitesimally more beneficial for his state of mind to be placed on. And that's the quest that goes on. Man has a limited duration in life. He starts from death. He starts in a sense of death to try to salvage that supposable mistake. He starts from birth and he makes his trip to death. It's Shakespeare. Yeah. The old war is a stage, and each man having his entrances and his exits, and each man in his time play multiple parts. And meanly, the only part he should be really playing or pursuing is attaining authentic actualization. As long as he as long as he attains authentic actualization, it's all uphill from there. There's seriously no downhill to go, because the world exists in that possibility field. It allows things to occur that previously once wasn't. And this is the series of emergence. Man goes from his birth, he goes to his death, and in present time, what to address him is what he must be doing. What he must be doing as far as getting rid of the sinkhole he's placed himself in, especially prevalent in this Western culture. There will be other moments where we will move across the globe, and usually there's a globe available here to really hold down exactly the tangibility of the domain we're referring to. But in this case, it's not, and we could substitute with the technology of the imagination. So bring about a globe and see on one side of it, you could put down a paper clip to designate, or a paper pin to designate it. And to another side of the globe, you could use a paper pin to designate. There are differences in the standard universal. Forget man's individuality for a second, about his culture, his style, and his music, and his language. Think about him purely as an organism with the capacity for experiences. There's better experiences you could have. There's less experiences. Lesser experiences you could have. There are better ways he could exert his agency, and there are not so beneficial ways he could exert his agency. These are the main cases that are on hand. These are the only things to really be addressing, because of the quality of experiences is with which we're dealing. And man is continuously inviting certain experiences in and omitting certain experiences altogether. And over time, these experiences become extinct in an individual. So you only see them over a certain capacity of review of history of life. They have because of this atrophy that has gone on in their ability to invite certain states of actual occasions into their matrix of being. And they do this for a certain duration, and they meet death. So take this from not the view now to review what it's currently demonstrating, because he can be perceived as such, as a pure performance, as he makes his entrance into this stage and his exit into this stage. He can be viewed as a pure performance, and this is the main key. There is that pure performance that goes on, but it goes on with many factors affecting it. So there's a great deal of karma in the basic sense of input to output. Input to output one has when they're exerting the agency through the setting of the happening, the form for action. He's an action potential ultimately, so he goes on constantly inventing and exerting his actions potential over time, and he ends up returning or receiving consequences for this exertion. But all these exertions could be educated, it could be re-examined, it could be considered in contrast to what one goal is. And that goal on the other side of the contrast, it's made out of belief, it's made out of expectation of what the word is about. So in the case that the word is about one thing for someone, they can create an entire set of views for themselves. If the word is another thing for another person, they create a different experience for themselves. Merely in the contrast is one to educate their first premises and forget all things and return to a tabula rasa on mother's knee. But imagine mother is actualized, and this is what the logos is, and it's the counterpart to the disordered aspect of the Tao. The Tao is both the ordered aspect of the world and the disordered aspect of the world, and one wants to align with a particular side of that. There is need to be aligned with one particular side of that, because nature is multi-headed. It is different things really to the same individual. And then because it is different things to the same individual, the individual proceeds to behave from that first and starting premise. But mainly there has to be a consensus on what we're dealing with. And similarly, there's a consensus between a driver, one motorist and another motorist on a highway, on a stateway, on an enterprise. They have a mutual understanding that is we both want to maintain, and we want to constantly maintain. At least that's the expectation one has. And when someone break out of this expectation, we are agitated towards them, because we expect things to go in this, and that's what allows, or at least with the orderly aspect of the Tao. And from there, it's simply then it's stasis. What stasis is in this explanation is a state. But it's a state with a sea of reverberation of some motion. Is why stasis, because it is in a sense fluctuating. It's a fluctuating networks of mass human activity. It is human activity that is the root of most of all things. It's how he exerts himself over different domains in different places over different times that gives him his history, that gives him his reputation. But his reputation is completely malleable. It can be transformed, as I spoke about before, and then from there it can be maintained. It takes that discernment initially, but afterwards, then it's that case. And that really changes the traversal man makes across from entrance to exit. He's trying to get a perfect performance, and a perfect performance hitting the mark continuously and in all moments where the actual occasion is potential. But for most humans, that is at least most human in the time as it's moved so far, that is not the primary orientation. It's not a primary orientation because it's not exactly in one's ontological repository of what not how they should act, but what they should do, or not what they should believe, but what they should do, or really what should you do is the primary case. So you can see how the understanding is still merged if you have been associated in this way, but you could not have been. You could have been associating or forming it in a particularly different way. But in this case, you could see how it both overlaps with religious thinking and departs from religious thinking, because in a sense it's more actual, it's more realistic. It's about the process aspect of reality as well as what is to come for salvation and mass resolution. And but it's the same case because the understanding is rooted from only one possible prior direction. Is that we want man to descend in a sense, but also want man to ascend to higher things. In his descension, he separates from the monkey and he re-emerges with the spirit, but he re-emerged priorly from the spirit that preceded matter, that preceded the imagery of the world and the materialization of the world, and that gives life world its efficacy, that gives it its vibration, its vibrancy, the fact that we're feeling and sensing and percepting and being present in the felt experience. These are all consequences of this one thing. It can only be a consequence of this one thing. There's only one thing around here to be dealing with. There's only one possible state to consider oneself in. Yes, there, but it's difficult at first, and like we said before. And now we can traverse into some of the obstacles that man faces. It's mainly his government, his brothers and his sisters. He's because it's only these guys are the players of different roles who only have humans to fill these vacancies. So it has to be that your problems are rooted in the activity of some particular section of your species population. They're always the culprit at hand. If you're a trained diagnostician and a discerning observer onto the matter, you immediately recognize that it's humans at the fault of this. But there are sneaky humans just as those who will be the ones to expose them are sneaky humans, because there's an understanding of what the organism is. And there's laughter accompanying this expression, because at the root, well, not in this sense at the root, but in this other way, that is, it's the meaning that in the grand scheme of things, it's a grand comedy. That is true laughter. That given this much opportunity, it is very and closely and asymptotically close or merging with the grandest stupidity and deepest mysteries and deceit and deceptions that can go on, and it goes down into the depths of pure evil. But all that can be resurrected and quarantined into the housing of the Tao and how it wishes to unfold itself, saying in this repetition that it's much looser than its predecessor in tightness, and but insensibly it's this nature that is also at the heart of the problem, because it is the one that set things to these standards, and I give them its potential, really, its effectiveness. His brothers and his sisters, of course, are the root of these things, and his call to action so far is to get those who are corrupt or blind or mad, and that's to have archaic thinking and really what I could only describe as the advancement of technology, what reaches high potent technology, and he can run himself mad into and stupor, given this recipe for disaster. So then that's on the roles of the ones who are actualized, right? That's removing all things and starting from first principles, the information let's say, go to, where we, as a creature of our magnitude, after we emerge into creation, what do we navigate to immediately for direction? What is that information passage? For different people, is different things, but it's definitely that case that how do you get primarily informed about the reality you've been thrown into? That becomes the immediate case. Well, it shows that it's 14 minutes so far, and I wonder how it's gotten that far. How it took that long. I really almost expected it to be longer so far. So far as I've been speaking, that's the information that passes. Blind matter, not knowing. So it's your responsibility to transform. You transform and then you're back to maintaining. And maintaining is that state that is consequently post-apocalyptic. And that is that state of Eden. And we'll definitely get to the statement of Eden because it is trying to be created all over the globe. It's trying to manifest itself so eagerly. But yes, also there's great resistance. And you should be acknowledged of that if you're a change agent. There's definitely resistance. There's a prior state that is not easily wavering to let go of his position over over the inheritance of men's experiences. They're eager. Their sin lurks at your door, similarly to a predatory cat, but it's not truly that graphic. These are action potentials. These are incitants. They only wish to lure a type of exertion. It wishes to lure itself in speech, in action. But in action is a plain thing because when man have a schema of a thought, he does down almost robotically to arrange it, but he's not aware of himself in quick time, so he doesn't see himself usually going through that A to B to C sequence. But he acts in this way. That's how he can be exposed. He acts in this way. So it wishes to lure one into activities of such and also incite them into things to say. And in saying these things, the world is made of mind. But when the mind collide and mind clash, it creates crazy things. It could create rivalry. It could create streaming matches. It could create high performance weaponry and technology and the products that greatly display man's ingenuity when he's united, and his ingenuity when he's united are magnificent. He goes far. He does really extraordinary things across his habitat. And he develops his Anthropocene, and we'll see how the Anthropocene is created differently in different places. Currently, this is 2015, and 10 years from 2015, and it's registering itself in its epoch. You know what is especially memorable about this time? Presently, there is man has in his democratic sense brought about another field of the world to display the cellular demarcations that actually are at play, because upon top view, he can be as particles intermixing with each other, and he's viewed from that perspective, and he's creating cellular patterns like almost you will see with a microscope. But in this case, the imagery appears in the imagination after the interrogation of the subject matter, and he's down there. He's at the other end of the lens, interacting as particles, and he's making demarcations here that others will not travel over, because what is over is abstractly, the grass is greener. It's a healthier way, in a sense, in all the competition of the world, in styles and places to be. There's one place to be in a certain style of living, and that's coming down to the dream of the Western hegemony. And those who are participating in this belief act up in a certain way. But it's the closest equivalent they could have possibly to actualization. And comparably, it's close in some sense, because at least in the whole aspect of actualization, you at least will wish to modify your environment, whereas it's most comfortable for its inhabitants. And there's a certain part of the globe that have done this, and then from there, and have honed on this knowledge, apparently, whatever this knowledge is that is so secret that only really gives one the sense of editing their habitat into the moment that's most satisfying for them. In standard case, for the type of beings, the Homo sapiens you're speaking of, they really just want the basic. They want protection from the elements and close proximity with their creature comforts. And if you give them this, and they will reward you with that person on the masses. And when they reward you with the person on the masses, giving the type of beings they are, you could be building and dreaming dreams on them if you are if you're a deceiver. You can dream weird dreams upon them if you're unrighteous and upright, because in that sense, they're trainable. In that sense, they can be molded and remolded. And man, as he's doing these things over generations now, is what this should be signifying. This movement, this pantomime should be signifying is that as he's doing this over and over, first there is a habit that develops, and also man goes through life quickly, especially in these states. And his brothers will keep him as cog in the machine, as debtors, as pawns, not only as debtors though, as addicts. Yeah, he will gravitate to this. He will attach to it, and it's a messy sight to see. But over time, giving this opportunity to transplant attention across the globe, or show off another part of the world and how they take on the opportunity of living upon the world.